Listen, you're not gonna find anything on me, okay? Trust me.
Empty your pockets into the tray, sir, or we'll have to. Your pockets, sir?
Lady, the problem isn't in my pants.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time for that time of the week when we talk about everything X-Men called This Week in X-Men. This week it is Ten of Swords, chapters 6 through 8, encompassing Hellions number 5, New Mutants 13, and I believe Cable number 5 as well. And I was pleasantly surprised. I was not expecting much from this week. Haven't been a big fan of New Mutants. Have not been a big fan of Cable. While I have loved Hellions, I didn't really see how it was going to be able to fit into the Ten of Swords storyline, but I think they did it quite well, if I'm being completely honest. Obviously, here with me as always is the X-Men historian, the Marvel aficionado, and I believe a dissenting view today. How you doing, Doc?
I am good, and I think we will have some dissenting views today.
Which is always good. We don't always have to agree, Doc.
No, we do not. It's more fun when we don't.
Yeah, so here's the bottom line up front. I said Hellions was a 4-star, highly recommend. On the verge of a 3.5-star, just barely recommend. Like, this is the weakest issue of Hellions since issue number 1, in my opinion. New Mutants, 4.5-star. Almost like, God, such a damn good comic book. Accomplished everything that they've been trying to do within Dawn of X, but have been completely unsuccessful with as far as creating stakes and tension within within Krakoa, now that Resurrection's a part of it. And so I call that one a 4.5-star comic. And I was very disappointed in Cable. Well, I wasn't really disappointed. I haven't enjoyed Cable much. I was disappointed I had to come back and read it. And basically I got it essentially what I had been getting most of the time. Now we're going to go through it, chapter 6, 7, and 8, which is Hellions, New Mutants, Cable. So we're going to start out with Hellions.
All right.
And this is interesting. There's a lot of character work, specifically 3 characters, Empath, Mister Sinister, and Jamie Braddock. And we kind of start out with Empath being resurrected. Obviously, he was murdered by John Greycrow. Greycrow.
Yes.
Idiot. He shot him in the face for popping off the lip. I think we were all happy that happened. And this, when he comes out, it just further cements that he's the biggest asshole on Krakoa.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? I will agree with that. I mean, Empath in this issue we got a lot more, because we haven't really had any character development with him, because he basically just got shot in the face, in what? The beginning of issue 2, the end of issue 1, something like that. And so we never really got to see much from him. And he got to let the asshole of him, in his personality, just fly. That flag was flying real high. And everyone hates him. Mm-hmm. That's the amusing part of this. Everyone hates him.
Yeah, it was very effective on the part of Zeb Wells. Now, we do have a different artist on here. Steven Segovia isn't illustrating this. I believe it's Carmen Carnero. This looks more like what we've been seeing in the other X-Men titles, so I prefer Steven Segovia on this, but I think it looked fine. The art's really was solid all around. Now, the more interesting thing happens in this story. I was like, how are they going to get Hellions in here unless, Psylocke is going to be one of the sword bearers, and she's not. None of the Hellions are a sword bearer. So how does this fit in the Ten of Swords? They do a meeting of Krakoa. Mister Sinister says, let's send my boys in. We'll go and grab the swords that Arakko are supposed to find. They'll have to forfeit because they can't enter the challenge. And they have a contentious vote. They decide to let the Hellions go in there, which I think is a great idea. Why wouldn't you send your mutant suicide squad in there on a suicide mission? You don't care if they come back anyway. That's why you don't want the people going to Otherworld. And so then they go, well, you need to lead them. And they take a vote, and Mister Sinister gets sent in to lead them. That was definitely my favorite part. This is the best Sinister I've seen since probably Fallen Angels. And that was an anomaly with what Brian Hill did with Sinister and Fallen Angels. Mister Sinister has been just a terrible version of the character, in my opinion, but I loved him in this comic.
Yes and no. While we got a little bit of development with him, I don't like to see coward Sinister, and that's kind of the way they were playing him, as a coward the entire time, like somebody that would talk tough and then try to get out of it. And then back at the at the meeting of the Quiet Council, they started this kind of ongoing joke that started getting tedious throughout the whole thing about his cape. The recurring cape joke is just grating on me, because it wasn't that funny, and then they kept doing it over and over. But you know what? For the most part, this was probably the best Sinister since Kieran Gillen killed the character, just straight up assassinated his character back in Uncanny X-Men Volume 2. So yeah, it was some improvement for Sinister. He definitely was much more interesting. I like the development of them forcing him to go.
Then we find out he's got clones in his basement. He decides to bring out his own clone. He's like, "You're going," and his own clone's like, "I'm new. I've got this supple young body. You should go. You're a grandpa." And they end up rochambeauing for it. And I believe he ends up. I don't know who won.
We don't know who won.
Yeah, the cape. So I assume it's the original. But it might have. He might have just said, "You have to take the cape, or no one's going to believe it's me."
Yeah, that's distinctly possible. We don't know which one won rock, paper, scissors. So, and I did love the fact that they made that the noble game. The noble contest is rock, paper, scissors. I mean, it is kind of perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and up to this point, this is like a 5-star comic from my point. From my perspective, I was like, great character progression, good tension at the Quiet Council, forcing Sinister to go out there. He's got a devious plan. We learned more information about his cloning technology and what he's doing in his basement of Bar Sinister as he's trying to use his clone to go in there and basically fight his war for him. And then the team go to Otherworld. And for me, the comic just dies for like the last 6 or 7 pages. They meet Jamie Braddock, Sir Jamie Braddock, where they call him. Apparently he's insane, and he's a little too eccentric for my test. He's even more eccentric and stupid than the weird version we had of Mister Sinister, and it was very grating. I hated it. Just as soon as they got into Otherworld, I just hated this comic book. That's why it's 4-star instead of a 5-star.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd go a little lower. I'd probably go 3-star, just because, like the first issue of this series, it took so long for them to even start their mission. We're basically at the end of the damn comic by the time they even start the mission, and that did kind of really bother me. It feels like this was really, really padded out. Now, yeah, Jamie Braddock I understand he's supposed to be crazy. He's legitimately insane. But
this is Bugs Bunny crazy. This isn't good crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is how in the world does anyone actually respect him as a king? Kind of crazy. Yeah. This is bad cartoon crazy, not good comic book crazy.
And then the team, as they exit, they have this stupid horse, and they get into a conflict, and they need Empath to basically save the day and let these people, mind wipe them or convince them to let him go through. And he's like, "Well, I'm not going to do that." And unless John Greycrow is my pet, and they're like, "Yeah, do it." And I'm like, I hate this comic book.
Yeah, I understood what Empath was doing, but at the same time, there was no way
Psylocke just cut his head off, and they figured another way to win.
Yeah, exactly. She should have just stabbed him right in the brain with her Psy blade. Let
John Greycrow cut him in half.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't like that. The weird, stupid Jedi mind trick that he did on those people, because they now, Jamie Braddock convinced them to take a stolen horse and trade him Sinister's cape for it. It was back to that stupid thing, that stupid joke about the cape, and it was just tedious.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the comic until they got to Otherworld, then it falls apart for me. Now, moving on to New Mutants, which I think was easily the best comic book this week. 4.5 stars, highly recommend. I thought the art in this was great. Rod Reese knocks it out of the park. I believe this is the last issue from Ed Brisson, and as far as I'm concerned, it's his best issue of New Mutants. And there's a lot of training montage, as Cypher is one of the champions of Krakoa.
Yep.
And Warlock is his sword. And, he's not a warrior. He's a translator. He's a man of science. So he and Magic are kind of having some training montages. I think they look great. It feels like New Mutants are.
That I will grant you. Yes, this definitely, the art on it was very, very fitting for New Mutants. Maybe this is the cynic in me, but this seemed like about 19 pages of Sad Boy Doug. And it's setting up for the big swerve, which is that, Doug will be the guy that wins it for them because they're setting his expectations so absurdly low that if he so much as walks through that gate, he's going to get himself slaughtered.
Also, this is Jonathan Hickman's favorite character.
Yes. So we know that there's no way in hell, Cypher dies. And we know that there's, they set the expectations so low that the big swerve's going to be that he wins it all for them, even though he doesn't have any skill as a fighter and blah, blah, blah. That's just me being cynical comic book reader, I guess. But for the most part, yes, the art was very good. The development of Doug's kind of back and forth on whether or not he should even go, Krakoa's,
no one believes in him, Doc.
Yes,
Magic
exactly.
is like, you're going to be slaughtered.
Krakoa says, Krakoa says you're not going.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get to that. So one of the best parts I thought was when Exodus enters the picture. I love this. We haven't really seen Exodus much. And he's like, hey, you have no chance of ever winning here. I'm going to murder you. You can't be resurrected right now. And when they can resurrect you, you'll be back. You can't enter combat if you're already dead, and I will take your place. It's a great plan all around. And Krakoa's kind of on board. It's not a bad plan.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool.
Yeah. But then Doug being, stubborn and saying, no, I need to go to prove myself in this contest, where if I don't prove myself, I'm going to be actually
listen,
dead.
I was chosen to be in the contest.
Yeah.
It would be cowardly of me to step back and let someone else go and put themselves in harm's way and put their lives on the line if I'm not willing to do it myself. I know I'm a man of science. I'm not really a warrior, but I was chosen for a reason.
And you know what? In that respect, he did display stupid heroism, but heroism nonetheless. Him talking about how he would never be able to forgive himself if somebody died while taking his place or because he wasn't there. And I get that, and that is good. I like that. But at the same time, dude, you need to think bigger than just that. And I think that's what Krakoa
honors at stake here. And I did like the character progression of Krakoa. Krakoa's like, no, are you nuts? You're the only one that can communicate with me. If you're not here, I'll be all alone.
Yep.
And he ends up, I think he takes Mondo and he's using him as like an intermediary to go and confront him because he's avoiding him. Yeah. And he has to come back and tell him, he's like, listen, I'm terrified, but I have to do this. But I like the character progression of Krakoa. Krakoa doesn't want to be alone. Krakoa wants somebody there to communicate with him. And I thought that was cool. I just like the character stage. Is this the most action-packed comic ever? No. There's some training montages. I like training montages. I like 80s movies, but I thought the character progression in this was good. I like Exodus finally entering the picture and doing something crazy. He feels like a wild card.
Yeah, he does. And You know what? I think you're kind of winning me over to liking this issue a little bit more than I did when I read it. But the cynic in me is still saying, come on.
I know this is going to be like Little Giants, where the kid that can't catch a football is going to be part of the special play in the end to win the championship.
Yes.
I'm aware of that, Doc. That's not what I'm not reviewing that here. I've got to go on what I saw. It as its own piece of story, this is excellent in my opinion.
And I will agree that, you know, it was better than my initial response. But it just seemed like 19 pages of sad boy Doug.
Hey, listen, if you were a computer nerd that was only good at translating stuff, and somebody's like, hey, that tech organic virus you got living inside of you, he's your sword. You're going into combat with against a warrior that's lived 1,000 years of violence. You might be a little unsure of yourself.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get much more of Warlock kind of being the soldier. And the thing is, there was the
other great part about this is so much Warlock. He's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, we already saw it where he kind of turns into almost armor for him instead of just being the shield.
He turned into like fucking not Iron Man, but War Machine.
He looked like somewhere between War Machine and a Fury.
Yeah, it's great.
And that I kind of dug. And I did dig the one part where after a while of him fighting with training with Ilyana,
that was cool.
Where he started to read her
he learned the
language
of her movements and her cadence. I like that too.
And
like if he studies another warrior in combat, he can predict what they're going to do.
Yes, and that is the most interesting part of this. That was a very interesting development.
Mm-hmm. I meant to bring that up in the training montage, but yeah, that was a cool part. Like that was really well done. I thought Ed Brisson, this is his best issue.
Yes, I would have to say it is still his best issue. I'd still say that this was probably only a 3.5 star comic, but I'll go with your 4.5.
Hey, I loved it. I thought this was great. Now let's get to the one I'm not as happy with. This one, you were more interested in this. We start out, we're on Sword. Basically, it's a space station. We've got Cyclops, we've got Jean Grey, we got Kid Cable. What's up?
The station is called the Peak.
The Peak. Okay.
Yes.
So that it was ran by Sword.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And it's been abandoned. They turned it on using Kid Cable's sword, which we know he needs to bring back to Earth and get into the circle on Krakoa so we can enter combat. They're telling him, you have to come back now.
Yes.
And he's like, all right, well, I used it to power up this station. We got to look at it first.
Yeah.
So they break up. They find something. We know that because they're looking up. They're like, oh, my goodness. And then Jean Grey, she goes around and she discovers this dude. And when he turns around, I'm like, oh, my goodness. It's Event Horizon, but in X-Men.
Yes.
And he's like, death would have been a better like fate than what happened to me. And his eyes are black or whatever. And he says some stuff and it's kind of cryptic. And then he like shoots himself out of the airlock, just like Event Horizon.
We don't need eyes where we're going.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. And you know what? Now that you mention that this is literally just, okay, Jerry Duggan, you did Event Horizon again. Great. Yeah,
until the end of the book. There's a twist, but
yeah, there is. There's a little bit of a twist. But you know what? Now I like this for what it was. I do want to say this: Phil Noto's art is better in this than it's been in the other. Significantly better than it's
much
been.
Better.
Yeah, I swear to God, it's like he started with issue 5 and then went and just in like a month did issues 1 through 4 because
you tell he had a lot more time.
Yeah, the art in this one is a significant improvement over all the other issues so far. I've hated Phil Noto's art on every other issue to this point. Now,
you know who actually looked really good at the end? Magic is in there, and his like magic looked really good.
Yeah, you know he
like,
does
striking. Like she kind of drew you into it with their eyes.
Exactly. And now this, for being just a if this was just an X or a Cable adventure comic, I would have loved this because it was cool. It is good. I mean, now granted, it's all just kind of set up for the upcoming Al Ewing Sword title, but it was a good story for what it was. It just had no business being forced into being a chapter in this stupid event.
Maybe that's why I rated it so low. I was like, what the hell is this doing there? I've seen Event Horizon. Wow, we got a different portal here, and then there's some type of alien virus thing coming after him. I'm like, this is not good random. It's weird random.
This reminds me of somewhere between a crossover between Event Horizon and I don't know if you remember this, but the X-Men, well, the all-new X-Men Guardians of the Galaxy crossover that they did a number of years ago called Black Vortex. It was the one where the teen angel had the fire wings and everything that he kept all the way up until extermination.
All right, Doc, I'm sorry. Do you see these? Are these versions of Nightcrawler or something? Look at these tails.
I can't tell if they're demons from Limbo. They kind of have I feel like this is like a Dark Universe version of X-Men characters that are all coming through.
Great. I've been reading enough of that in DC Comics.
Exactly. And now, because this reminds me of that mirror thing from Black Vortex, and it's got the same black frame and the blue crackly electric, thing in the middle. Now in that, people went through it and came back changed. This time it's these weird creations that come back through changed. And now it was interesting. Again, by itself, this is a cool comic. Making it the thing that I hated about it is it had no business being chapter 8 of this event. This has nothing to do with this.
Other than the last page, Cable enters the circle and it's Magic, Wolverine, Cable, Cypher, and another one.
Storm.
They're all in there. But Cable already had the sword.
Yeah, exactly. So he's just going off on his ventures in the meantime. He's like, screw this. I ain't just standing around. Now there was one giant plot hole in this comic with, Jean and Scott tell Cable, run and get the sword, pull it out, we'll hold them off. And then, so he's in an entirely different part of the station, pulling this, he had to transport himself back to Earth, back to wherever that power station that would beam them up to the peak is. And Jean's communicating with him telepathically to, come back, pull the power, turn off the connection, keep them isolated to here. And so they're still on the station and he's back on Earth, and they all walk through the gate back.
I thought he was on the station. Like he had to be on the station to put the sword in to turn it on.
I thought they did that from Earth and then they went up to the station.
That was not my. But it
doesn't matter. He pulled the plug. They're not anywhere around him. Yeah. How the hell did they all get back to Krakoa?
I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. Not my favorite comic book. I really enjoyed Hellions until they got to Otherworld. Like I said, that's a 4-star, barely highly recommend. New Mutants, that is a 4.5-star, very highly recommend. I love that comic. This is a Cable. I'll call it a 2.5-star recommend. It was on my no recommend. You got me. You know what? I shouldn't devalue it just because it shouldn't be in the story. It's not that bad. It's a 2.5-star, barely recommend.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. And I'd say that my ratings are probably 3, 3.5, and another 3. So it was kind of a middling week for me.
Yeah. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. I don't think we need to read any of these until Stasis, but we'll keep doing it, Doc. Next week we got X-Men 13 and Excalibur 13.
Oh God, kill me with Excalibur.
See you then, brother.
All right.